Tech Table. Tech Table. Tech Table.
Hello and welcome to the Tech Table, the Technical Staff and Theatre Workers podcast. It's the podcast in which I talk to people in the technical side of the entertainment industry about how they got in, their experiences, and any advice they can give to anyone getting in. This is a special bonus episode in between seasons 5 and 6, where we're talking all things PLASA. Now, if you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can get in touch via the socials on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, and YouTube are all Tech Table Pod. If you want to get in touch, the email address is techtablepod@gmail.com. And yes, thank you so much for the continued downloads during our mid-season or in-between season hiatus. It's still been really great downloads, great figures we're getting, so it's really cool. Give us a follow on the socials and get in touch. And without further ado, let's get on to our next guest. I'm here with my guest at this time. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell me what your current job title is.
Hi, my name is Peter Heath. I am the current MD of PLASA, the Professional Lighting and Sound Association.
Excellent. And how did you get into the entertainment industry?
Great question. I've been in entertainment in one form or another most of my life, whether that started as a choir boy back in a church choir in the 1960s, through to learning to play the trumpet at school and being part of the school orchestra and school productions, and then later on forming my own band and working as a semi-professional and professional musician for most of my life. So that's how I got involved in it. And really, as a teenager, when you're trying to develop what you had, your skills and equipment, and in those days it was all about equipment. You had to have the gear.
Absolutely.
And we had to make it. So we had to make the gear. So we made our own PA, we made our own monitor system, we made our own mic stands and stuff like that. We were resourceful sort of teenagers in order that we could go out and gig. And then we'd scrounge lifts from our parents to make sure that we can go and make the gigs.
Yeah, I know what that's like. Probably not the making the equipment. I don't think we had to do that, but definitely had to scrounge lifts off people.
We never had money. We never had the money to go and buy the gear.
Absolutely.
So that's what we had to do.
Brilliant. So, and is that how you made your transition into the sort of technical side of things rather than the performance, or did you just stay in the performance?
No, I moved. I mean, when you say technical, I never really worked as a technician. What I did, again, in my teenage years and early 20s was I worked with a studio. So I was a tape op in those days. Called. So I used to mic all the instruments, mic the drum kit, and then operate the tape machine and be a gopher, really, in the studio. And in the evenings, when the studio wasn't being used as a studio, it was a rehearsal studio, so I would let the bands in and I'd help them with the PA. And then we got a PA, and then I'd go out and do PA for bands. This is in the mid to late 70s. So where I was living, there were lots of local gigs, and I used to go out and do the PA for the band. So I learning, workflow and work processes in the studio, and then going out and doing it as a kind of a live sound engineer. That's how I learned my trade, and actually being in the band and being responsible for the sound. That's how I learned my trade.
Excellent. So just going back to something you said previously, because a lot of people listening to this won't really know what you're talking about. Explain to me what a tape op does and how you operate the tape machine, because obviously everything's done on computers these days.
Correct, yeah. So in those days, it was literally tape. You would record onto 1-inch wide tape or 2-inch wide tape, depending on how many tracks were on the recording machine. And literally, this machine would stand 6 foot high, and there'd be lots of switches and knobs and buttons on it. And your job was to prepare a track for recording, or make a track safe, or synchronize a track for playback, and press the play button, press the record button, rewind, and do all that stuff, and do some editing. which was terrifying doing editing, because when you make an incision in a tape, it's pretty final.
Absolutely. Did you have to bounce the tracks down as well? I learnt a lot of stuff on an old Fostex 4-track reel to reel.
Yeah. So and you have to bounce tracks down. So largely we would do the rhythm tracks. So you do the bass and the drums and any other part of the rhythm that you felt necessary into a number of tracks, and you bounce them down into a stereo pair, or sometimes 2 mono blocks to use as part of the final mix, depending on what you're doing and how you're working.
And that would free up tracks to record other things onto.
But then you can free up tracks to layer, guitars, keyboards, and then vocals and harmonies, and then you'd go and mix that. And in those days, we'd mix it to the favourite machine was a Revox B77, which was quite a nice machine because it ran at 15 inches per second.
Yeah.
And in those days, they would say the faster the machine, the better the quality you get as an end result.
Yeah. And there's something you just said that that's completely slipped my mind. We'll come back to it. So what was your first... So working in the studio was sort of your first paid job in that sort of area, was it?
No. And so at the time I was working in music retail.
Right.
In the mid-70s, and then in the evenings and the weekends. That's when I'd work the studio or going out and doing front of house for bands who were playing local gigs. So
it was all sort of voluntary. You just... Almost like you could use the equipment if you did the job, sort of thing.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, as the studio, I was kind of more part of the studio, but the people who ran the studio, it was all in their spare time. We were not full-time studio engineers or a recording studio, so you had to build that up from nothing.
Right.
So we would have... You had nothing. You'd make the studio and then go, right, here it is, and then you'd try and commercially make it work.
This sort of, I think is fascinating to a lot of people, because certainly the recording studio part of it, because everything's done on computers and everything's easy these days, it's straightforward. You can just put it on and you can sync it all up, mix it all. Just the process that you had to go through, quote unquote, in the olden days of it all, and I had to do it as well, is quite fascinating, really. So what did you how did you move from that? What did you do sort of in the 80s, after the 70s, the recording studio? Did you stay there or did you carry on?
Well, I mean, in those days, the usual thing was your father would come along and say, you need to get a proper job. So I spent a short time as a full-time musician touring and supporting and doing support gigs for larger acts, and this was in the early 80s. And again, you learn an awful lot about the gear and how to get the best out of the gear you've got. And then when we could no longer be professional musicians because we literally did run out of money and usual bad management stories and all that kind of thing, I went back to work in a very different environment. But then I created my own little studio at home, which I used to then do backing tracks for solo artists. And so they could literally, and in those days they would go out with a cassette tape, and play a cassette tape, and they'd play the backing track, and they'd strum a guitar and sing along to it.
Oh, excellent. Sorry.
I think the important thing about this for all of us is not recording the way that we used to record. I'm not saying today's methods are wrong or bad.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying that we have, over the years, technology has made it so easy for one person to do everything, which I think is fantastic. Yeah. However, the other output from that is the lack of bands, lack of people playing together.
Yes.
So whilst in music, we've got a lack of bands just doing that stuff and learning their trade and going out there and having to do it together. In theatre, you don't have that. In theatre, you've still got a theatre. Of course, there are one-man shows, but primarily theatre is about a bunch of people getting together and collaborating and making something extraordinary happen on a stage, which they do.
Yes, absolutely. So let's move on to PLASA and the PLASA show, which is primarily the reason why we're talking today. Explain to me how you got involved in PLASA and where PLASA came from.
Well, I've been the MD for PLASA since April 2016. Prior to that, I was a member of PLASA, or the organisation I worked for were PLASA members. We were exhibitors, and also we were advertisers in the magazine, as it was called then, Lighting and Sound International. It's now called Light and Sound International. But this year, it is the 48th edition of the PLASA show,
Wow.
Believe it or not. 48, which is incredible. And we've got 140 exhibitors. We're quite full, so we've had to expand our place within Olympia. So now we're on the full of the ground floor in the Grand Hall. We're now using the gallery for quite a number of features, including the PLASA members stand. But important things like the Innovation Gallery, which is normally a very big feature within the show because it's all about technology and all about how it's applied to equipment and making sure that the production process is made either easier for people, or it gives such enforcement to creatives who can take a bit of technology and make it work beautifully in a live performance or a theatre. So Innovation Gallery, we've got classic gear, so we've got classic lighting gear, we've got classic audio gear, and this year we've got special performance, part of the last Beatles performance, which was the rooftop gig. We've got the original PA that was used for that gig on top of the roof. And we've recreated the rooftop scene and put the gear up there. And we've got a Beatles band coming to do some of the rooftop songs, which brilliant. Will be fantastic. But I mean, other things that I think are really, really important in LSI, Light and Sound International, it's their 40th anniversary this year. Which is incredible. I mean, I don't know how many other magazines have been in the same form within our sector for 40 years.
Yeah.
So I need to do some research on that. And the readership has been incredibly loyal over the years. You've got over 50% of the readership are people based or working within theatre. So it really has a very good audience indeed. And then in addition to the celebrations and what we'll be doing for LSI's 40th, we've got collaboration between the Power of Events, Production Futures and Access Industry. They're going to be hosting or working together, if you like, for special networking and live talks about careers within our sector, because that's one of the biggest challenges we face as a sector is getting more young people interested and joining our sector early enough so they can learn skills and make choices as they go throughout their career.
Absolutely. I mean,
because
it's awareness. There's a lack of awareness at the moment, I think, of the technical side of the entertainment industry that people they don't even know it's there as a thing. And so that's what we're trying to do we're trying to, on the podcast, is trying to spread the awareness of this is an industry that you can become involved in and it's very viable.
Yeah, absolutely. And, people who've traditionally entered our industry have come from either they are people who wanted to be involved in the theatre in some way. Maybe they've started on the stage and then decided, well, no, I'd rather be in the background doing something else. I'd rather be part of the production. And the same for audio as well. Where, for music, they've started on the stage and thought, no, I'd rather be doing something else. I'd rather be making it happen rather than doing it itself. So now, we are in such competition with other sectors. We need to have our game in order to make sure we stand a chance of getting the brightest brains, because being technically involved with our industry, you need to be smart on many levels, and you need you need, from an audio perspective, you certainly need to know about IT. You certainly need to know about physics, and the same with theatre too.
This is the thing. I mean, obviously the arts funding is being cut at the moment, and we won't get too political about things, but the whole thing of STEM, but not including technical side of theatre and live sound and live shows in sort of STEM, you can't possibly say that sound is an art form as much as it's physics and technology. So it's all sort of part of the same thing.
Yeah, it is, and of course what we work with, whether it is live music and or whether it is theatre, it's also subjective.
Yes,
because everybody has a different pair of ears and everybody has a different pair of eyes, and so what they see and hear can vary. And that's also the beauty of it, because it means that you can have such a broad spread that can mean so much to people.
Excellent. Yes. So when is the PLASA show?
The PLASA show is at Olympia. Starts on Sunday, September the 7th, and runs through to Tuesday, September the 9th.
Excellent. And I'll be there on Monday, I think, so that's good. And just two final questions. One, you said you spent part of the early 80s touring with larger bands. Are there any bands that people would know that you supported?
Yeah, I think so. So they were quite big at the time. There was an American band that were playing very different music to what we were playing. A band called Shalimar.
Oh yes, Shalimar.
A series of hits, and we also worked a little bit with Odyssey.
Excellent.
And then, of course, we inevitably worked with a British rock and roll band and worked with them for a short while, and they were Shawaddy Waddy.
Excellent.
Less glamorous than Shalimar, but equally as fun. They were incredible to watch live, what they did.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And finally, do you have any advice to give to anybody who wants to get into the industry, be it entertainment, be it theatre, be it TV, anything like that? Any advice that you could possibly give? I
think so. Sometimes this might be a bit of longer than you think it might be an answer.
That's okay.
So sometimes, because of the way I got into it and what I've done with my career and my life, I very often say to my daughter, "Don't be a dinosaur. Don't be like me. I'm a dinosaur." But actually, some other people say, "Well, you have a story to tell because you didn't take a formal route or a traditional route. Your route was anything but that." But I think for people nowadays, what you need to do is you need to keep up to speed with technology and what's going on. So read the magazines, come to the trade shows where you can speak to people. And certainly nowadays, where we are much more aware of the fact that we need to provide information about careers, jobs, and prospects within our industry, because our industry is a real industry. Yes. And there are careers out there. So get involved with all these things. That can certainly help. And one of the things that we are trying to do as an industry, and certainly being headed up by the Power of Events, is to get to schools. Yes. So we can introduce our sector to schools at an early age, so they start to learn and understand what the entertainment and what production industries do. Excellent.
And you hit the nail on the head perfectly. You said speak to people. I think that's the most important thing, is speak to people.
I see it. So when I was a kid, go and get a proper job. I don't think it's the same anymore. I think parents, a lot of the parents that certainly I speak to, understand there is a career and their kids can do something really meaningful and successful within our sector now. And there's so much more support for kids now than there were certainly in my day.
Yes, lovely. And that's everything. So thank you so much for joining me.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, big thank you to Peter there. Very interesting talking to Peter. If you'd like to go to the PLASA show, It is on the 7th to the 9th of September this year, 2025, at Olympia in London. Go to plasashow.com for all your Plaza Show needs. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, it's Tech Table Pod on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, Threads, and YouTube. And the email address is techtablepod@gmail.com. Get in touch, say hi, give us a follow on the socials, and yes, continue the downloads. Brilliant download figures we've been having, so thank you so much for the continued downloads. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you know who's interested in theatre, and anyone who's not interested in theatre, because it might make them interested in theatre. The new season, season 6, will debut on the 13th of September, so just a couple of weeks now before that starts. We've got some great guests lined up, so looking forward to that. Yes, get yourselves down to the Plaza Show. We're there on Monday. I'm there on Monday. So, yes, if you see me, say hi, and come and tell me that you love the podcast and all those rosy things. And until then, I shall see you all for Season 6.